The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Terra Turas. We've got a little bit of a change, and we have some better information and some different topics for you this evening. Joining us tonight, not only myself, Mike Peterson, but on the right of your screen is Reverend Pat Beers.
Hi, everybody.
And on the left, we have a special guest, Mr. Jared Walters from Divine Awakenings in Sandusky. Jared, how are you this evening?
I am well. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, I appreciate you jumping in here. This evening, we're going to be talking about chakras. And at the last minute, Heather has come back from Hawaii. And I know that she had a little bit of a rough time. She was down and under the weather just from the change in climate going from Hawaii back to Michigan, Yeah. So it's one of those things. She needed to have the evening off. And at the last minute, I spoke with Jared. I said, how well do you know chakras? He goes, really well. I said, dude, you're it. So he's joining us this evening. But Jared, there's one thing I want to touch on before we get into anything about tonight's topic. Last week, we spoke about Max the Crystal Skull. And it had a phenomenal amount of people showing interest in Max the Crystal Skull. And I know that comes up this weekend, April 12th through the 14th, at your shop, Divine Awakenings, and that's in Sandusky, Ohio. Tell me a little bit about Max, and if you have any kind of scheduling openings left, if you would.
Absolutely. Well, like Michael said, Max the Crystal Skull is going to be at Divine Awakenings on April 12th, 13th, and 14th. Max is a quartz crystal skull, approximately human-sized, a little larger than our heads, but he is an anomaly to many scientists around the world. He's comprised of 5 different crystal quartz formations within him, which is unheard of. There's nothing else like him on the planet, and he baffles scientists to this day. So he's pretty rare. He dates to be approximately 10,000 years old. But the quartz crystal itself could be much older than that. It could be upwards of millions of years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people that had responded and watched last week's show. And I'll tell you, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually the highest viewed show that we've had so far, which tells me the interest in not only the subject material, but in Max himself is just phenomenal. And as Jared was saying, this is a skull. It's a large crystal skull. It's not puny. It has baffled scientists because it is like 10,000 years plus old. It is an ancient artifact. Yes. And it's going to be at his shop at Divine Awakenings this weekend. Now, did you say, do you have any appointments open that are left open?
We only have about a handful of appointments left, so if you're thinking about it, you definitely want to give the shop a call and get on our appointment list so that way you can secure your appointment before it's too late.
Tell me what's the phone number so people can call you?
You can call us directly at area code 419-502-9137.
Fantastic. And I would encourage everybody to do it because, as we mentioned last week, this is something that comes around. It's only going to be in Ohio. It's not going to be somewhere else. You're not going to be able just to wander down to your local museum and see this thing because the lady that takes care of this lives in Texas.
Yes.
Now, she is getting a little bit older. We don't know how long Joanne Parks is going to continue traveling with Max. This may be one of the last few times you'll ever have the chance to be able to see him in person. So please, if you can, call the shop, get your appointment time, get that set up.
Yes.
Now, we're going to move into the subject of chakras. A couple weeks ago, even before, when I was having technical difficulties on my end, because we were talking about haunted items, Pat was sitting there and she goes, well, why don't I, and she said, I'll help balance your chakras. And I heard what she said, and I understood what she said, but there are some people out there that were going, huh? They don't know. And sometimes when you say chakras, all people think about is yoga. Like it's part of a yoga pose or part of a yoga routine. That's not true, folks. The chakras are, if you could think about it, the metaphysical spinal column of our entire being. That's the best way that I could phrase it. Pat, I'm going to start with you. When you talk about chakras, before we get into each individual, when we talk about chakras, what does that mean for you as a reader, as the metaphysical person?
Well, this is my pendulum. I'll say it. And the first thing I do when you sit down at my tables, I balance your chakras. Most religions, if you're meditating or praying, want you to bring the energy from your butt to the top of your head, your crown. I'm clearing. I'm starting from your crown and I'm going down. I did yours and I did yours and I did my own a few minutes ago. Hold out anything that will swing. A necklace. My husband was a master's degree research chemist. He had no time or energy for any of this. A friend came one time and did tuning forks with him, Greg Nicholas, and he handed my husband a washer on a string. And he said, Roger, ask it to show you yes. Well, this happens to be my yes, back and forth. Stop. Show me no. So what I do is when you sit down at my table, the first thing I do is I ask my higher self to go to your higher self. I ask for permission to balance your chakras. I close my eyes and I ask, I'm talking about Michael's right now. And as you can see, it starts spinning. Most of the time it spins counterclockwise for me. And when it does that and it starts going back and forth, then I ask it to go to your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root. And once it stops going in circles, I know it's done and it will just stop. So if everybody would just, when you start your day, just hold out anything that will swing. I use my car keys. I've used necklaces. I've used just plain chains, and just ask spirit to balance your chakras. And normally it will go counterclockwise. And when it's done doing that, unwinding your crown, it'll go down and it'll clear all of them. And you'll find that you'll be in a much better mood. If your day's going crazy at work or you're sitting next to someone or have to deal with someone and they're like off the wall, do it. And you'll be amazed. I was a realtor and a broker for 28 years, and I was also the president of the Women's Council of Realtors and served on the governing board for a number of years. And there was a gentleman that his wife had been diagnosed with cancer, and of course, he was a nervous wreck. So we'd be sitting in governing board, and he'd notice that I'd take my necklace, and I'd just be playing with it, and pretty soon the necklace is spinning. And it probably took him about 6 months. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" His name's Roger also. He says, "When I'm here with you guys and you start playing with that necklace, I calm down." I said, "What makes you think I'm doing something?" He says, "Pat." So I fessed up. So he did it for his wife. It just kind of turns down the temperature, if you will. And if you're in pain, like I have 2 knee replacements and I broke both my ankles at the same time. If you're hurting and it's not time for medication, or maybe you just want a little extra help, you hold out your pendulum over that area and ask it please to balance that energy, and it'll do the same thing. It'll start going counterclockwise and it'll go until it's done, and then it'll go back and forth, and then it'll just stop. And Jared's shaking his head yes, because he does all this stuff too.
Wow. Wow. And you and I have spoken about chakras on many different occasions, when we travel together, when we work together at Jared's shop, different places. So I was always curious when somebody said chakra to you, what it would bring out. And I'm very curious, Jared, when somebody says that to you, what does it bring about in your mind? What do you think of?
Well, when I think of a chakra, I think of it as almost being a vacuum, because when we look at our chakras, they are like little tornadoes that go inward in different points of the body. And we pull in energy from in these different sources, from different sources. We'll pull energy in and we kind of digest that on a spiritual level. And it might give us different information on things that are going on systematically and physically with your body. But you're thinking we're constantly pulling in energy and from our environment and our surroundings. And so it's one thing you always want to make sure that you're protected. You want to make sure that these are balanced in essence, because when they're out of balance, that's when physical illness starts to set into the body.
And that's one thing that I know. I am not going to say that I am highly educated in chakras, because that would not be a truthful statement. But I know enough to try to keep me out of trouble. So when you say imbalance, what I try to think of is kind of like a straight line, and there are 7 chakras, and they all need to be in line, just like your spinal cord. Even though you look at it from a side view, your spine does this, but if you look at it from front to back, it's pretty well straight. And how can you tell when a chakra is out of balance or not in alignment?
There's a couple different ways. Actually, for instance, if you're a solar plexus chakra, which is about the area of your belly button, if you start to experience like abdominal problems, like digestive issues and such, sometimes that can be suggestive that your chakra might be out of balance as well. Like Pat uses the pendulum. I use pendulum as well in crystal healing and some of the other modalities that I practice, but I can use the pendulum, and the pendulum will then tell me specifically if that chakra's in alignment or out of alignment. And basically what that means mean 3 things. Is it open and flowing too much? Is it open and flowing too little? Or is it right in the middle and it just needs some adjustments? And so it's important to know that they flow circular. They pull in from the front and they exit out the back. So you see a little tornado in the front and you see one going out the back.
Okay, that makes sense to me, but here again, I'm more of an analytical kind of guy at times than much of anything. Let's talk about the chakras in and of themselves. And I know that it starts all the way at what they call the root chakra. And that's all the way down where?
Your butt.
Go
Your
ahead,
seat.
Pat.
You're sitting on it.
I'm sitting on my root chakra?
You are.
Okay. I've heard...
Base of the coccyx.
I'm sorry?
Right at the base of the coccyx, at the very end of your tailbone.
Okay. What does the root chakra really kind of control in our body, in our metaphysical kind of body?
Well, according to my friend Linda Trenta, who's been a Reiki master almost, 40, 50 years, she told me today, because I asked her, because we all have our own things about it. She said it's your life form, your survival, your fertility, your procreation, and your wanting to live, and it just, to me, it represents family,
Jared, go ahead.
It's all about grounding too. It's your foundation. So when you tend to be all up here in your head and you're flighty and too much is going on up here, we sometimes need to ground ourselves, and that can suggest if the chakra is actually in alignment or not. But it's about grounding. There was another one, safety as well. So it's that foundation.
So it is something that connects us to Earth and to Earth energy.
It's your root. It's your root. It truly is your
now,
rooting.
This is one that I hear often, but I've never explored, taken the time to look at. It also controls The best way that I can put it is more towards a sexual energy of things, both
That's
male and
moving up
female.
one.
That's the next one up?
Next one up.
Okay. So, and this is why I'm asking, because I'm trying, when people say root, I don't want them to think of rut like what people do at times. It's the root chakra that connects you and grounds you. Fantastic. Yes. And I know that each chakra, and I wish that I had had more time before the show, I know that each chakra has a different symbol and a different color to them.
Yeah.
And the one typically associated, the color typically associated with the root chakra is red.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the next one going up. The spelling, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, is Sacral.
Sacral.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does this particular chakra do?
It's all about your emotions, your creativity, your sexuality. It's all found in that chakra.
Okay, because I've heard this is kind of where physical internal organs are also located. When people are talking about kidneys and whatnot, this is the same area of the body that would control that. So, if I'm understanding correctly, and this is as much a learning experience for me, and I'm glad, Jared, that you're here. Pat has worked with it forever, so she has this understanding, and sometimes she forgets what she knows simply because she's worked with it for so long, But if this were out of balance, then in conjunction with your kidney and your bladder, you might have a difficult time, going to the bathroom, or you might have pains or aches or something that is going wrong.
Right. Women, bladder infections, things like that might start setting in.
How, Pat, would you balance this particular chakra?
Same way. I hold out something that swings, and I ask them to please balance that chakra. I ask my higher self, first of all, and I would just ask them to balance my chakra. So I'm asking them, and they're saying I'm okay. Because it also affects your relationships, your desires, and if someone's a little too fiery, a little too just, like, you can often calm them down by just doing that. And I do it for people that I'm talking to, even at a distance, or I think about friends or my kids or something. I'll ask my higher self to go to their higher self. Do they need your chakras balanced? And if they tell me yes, then I go and I do it.
Now, Jared, I'm going to ask you an odd question, and I'm not sure if you're going to have an answer for this one. Have you ever found something in a dietary habit that might help people from the dietary standpoint help balance this kind of chakra, or are we looking at more just metaphysical energy sides of things?
Absolutely. When you think of the different colors that the chakras represent, for instance, sacral chakra being orange, you might want to eat more foods that are orange, because we know that they contain an energy vibration. For us to visually see the color spectrum, they have different wavelengths. So orange having a specific wavelength or a specific frequency, you're going to eat things that are related to that color because they carry that same vibration, same frequency, that when taking in that, it's going to help your body physically and energetically at the same time.
See, and again, and I'm glad, educational on my behalf, this would directly affect a family member of mine who recently had some massive bladder infections and things like that. Now I know to be able to tell them, look, here are some of the things that you need to do, not only to balance, but here are some things you can add to your dietary habit to be able to help do that. Go ahead, Pat.
And think about it. You're going to say orange, and people think, oh, oranges. No, orange peppers, carrots, and Jared, shouldn't they also carry stones related to those colors?
Absolutely. There are a variety of different ways people can balance their chakras and help align them. But yes, like Pat said, for instance, if when we're speaking about the sacral chakra again, I would use something like carnelian because it's orange. It has that energy vibration of orange. It's going to help in that area. You can even go outside of colors and you can use sound therapy again because sound therapy, each chakra has a different frequency, a different note on the musical scale. And when you're playing the frequency that is compatible with that chakra, that specific chakra, it's going to help to align it and open it and make sure that it's flowing correctly.
See, now that's something I've never heard. I should know better because I've been in your shop and I've watched people having different types of healing modalities working with them on them, but I had never really paid attention to. And a sound vibration penetrates everything. Yes. With beyond a shadow of a doubt. You mentioned crystals. What would citrine do in that kind of a state?
Citrine. Go ahead, Pat.
No, I'm deferring to Jared because I like the stones, but I have no.
Citrine is going to correspond because the color of citrine tends to be a yellowish color. Is going to correspond with your solar plexus. But your solar plexus is the next one up from your sacral chakra. It's about the area of the belly button. So having that frequency and that vibration, naturally, that's what the resonance that the stone has, placing it on that chakra, the chakra is going to be more favorable to accept the energy that's flowing from that because it's going to have that carry that same frequency as itself. So they're going to be very compatible in that way. So energetically, it's going to help that become more in tune, more balanced, and flowing at the optimal speed that it should flow at in order to stay open and to keep you healthy in that area, if you will.
Fantastic. And since you mentioned it, we're going to go ahead and move on up the scale to the solar plexus chakra, which you mentioned is yellow, is the color that's associated with it. What does this basically control more in the physical body?
The solar plexus chakra is going to be more like your digestion and things like that. It's your will, it's your social self, it's your power center. And we know that the solar plexus is also connected to, I know you guys talked about this before, the clairs, and this is going to be your clairsentience. So your ability to feel and perceive things, that gut instinct as you're receiving information, you might have this feeling within you. So it's directly connected to your clairsentience.
And to me, it also represents fear, false energy appearing real. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but you probably experienced it. Someone has said something really off the wall to you. When my son was in New Orleans when Katrina hit, he was the manager of a Renaissance Hotel, one of the managers. And I was reading for a lady, and she goes, "Oh, I don't know what you're so worried about. You know, he's going to be just like somebody poked me in the stomach, and I doubled up. I had never, I'd had it before, but not to that extent." Right. And everybody just looked at me and they're like, "Yeah, I never read for her again. Never talked to her again ever if I could help it." But wow. Yeah, it can be a very physical response to something, because if they hit that fear mode and they hit it in the right way, or they hit something very personal to you and they make a wisecrack about it, it can really take your breath away.
Mm-hmm. And I know from years ago when I was working more with a particular type of karate that we learned about the center of the self called Chi, C-H-I. And I know Nancy Gardner, if you remember Nancy, Pat.
Oh, yeah. And the swords? Oh, yeah, I remember Nancy.
This is a lady, a Taekwondo master that travels the world. She talked about Chi, its energy, where it's located, and that does correspond right with the solar plexus area. Now, Nancy Gardner is like 5'4", maybe 5'5".
If you're lucky, yeah, maybe 5'2's closer.
Skinny as a rail, at least my age that I'm aware of. And she had swords. When we were at Virginia Beach, she had practice swords for doing a particular routine for Taekwondo. And these things were 4 foot long, and she had 2 of them. And she made those things hum through the air. And every morning she would go down to the boardwalk at Virginia Beach and practice out on the sand.
About 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and you could see her. And these things, honest to God, these things were a blur. And I went down one morning and I picked one up. I'm like, those are not light. How do you manage? And that's when we got into the topic of chi, and again, I'd learned earlier before, but it's all centered right there in the center of your mass of your body. Mm-hmm. And I find that just to be interesting as anything.
Yeah, I believe in Tai Chi, they refer to it as the Dantium.
Yeah, the Dantium, yeah. She was going to Italy compete in a national contest, remember?
Yeah.
That's what she was doing.
She traveled worldwide to compete in contests for, her capability. So when people said, she's a Tai Chi master, it's true. I would never mess with that lady. I don't care. If I'm 500 feet away, I'm going to run the other direction. She's sweetheart of a lady, though. I'll tell you that. Now, moving on up, we get into something that I find a lot of people having confusion about, and it's the heart chakra. Jared, tell me what about the heart chakra, if you will.
Well, the heart chakra, it is at the level of your heart. It is the fourth chakra ascending. It functions for compassion, for love, integration, to name a few. The color's green. Not pink, like most people would think. However, when we talk about using crystals and chakras, green aventurine is more favorable for that chakra, but we know rose quartz can also work. And they have little bit of a different energy vibration, so depending on how shut down or how open the chakra is, one would be better than the other. But all intents and purposes, green aventurine is what's best for that chakra.
Okay.
Wow. Pat, what do you have to put in about the heart chakra?
Usually it's the emotions, self-love particularly. And if someone's having trouble with self-love, I always have them carry a pink rose quartz. Also, I will tell you, I've seen this from experience myself. Women who have had breast cancer and going through chemo and whatnot would carry a rose quartz in the bra, in the side that was affected, and it would turn white. Mm-hmm. It would actually take some of the stuff from, so they trash them and they start over again.
Wow. See, now this is where, as a reader, and because I work with a particular company, I've read for people in 19 different countries around the world. And I hear so many people asking about their heart chakra. And the misconceptions that they often have are that it is a controlling kind of thing, that it does particular things. And I try to tell them it's more about love, tolerance of capability, a person's compassion, if you will. The true aspects of love. Not an expectation, not, because, people will say, I often follow my heart. And that's a wonderful thing. But you have to balance following your heart with your solar plexus or the rest of you where your gut feeling resides. Because if you follow your heart, you may walk off the side of a cliff. Here again, it's why this balance of all your chakras is so important. You've got to listen to all of them. Jared, you look like you had something you wanted to add in that.
Oh, not necessarily. I was just visualizing as you're speaking, because I tend to show people, I think of the chakras and the alignment of the chakras like a stream. And when anytime any of these chakras are blocked, I think of it like a dam, a beaver dam, and it blocks the flow. So if you're blocked at your heart chakra, the lower chakras then can start to become out of alignment, and your upper chakras as well.
Okay, let's take that just a step further. Let's say that the heart chakra, mine, is blocked up. I'm having problems and issues. Would that then begin to show more in physical symptoms or physical formats to the chakras below it because the water is not cascading down? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Over time, it'll start to build up, because when you think of non-flowing water, you think of stagnant water, you think of diseased water, foul-smelling water, So when one becomes blocked, over time and you're not recognizing it, it can start to affect the lower chakras or the upper chakras in that case too.
Wow. Okay, now go ahead, Pat.
Can I add something? I had gone for many years to Camp Chesterfield in Chesterfield, Indiana, just this side of Indianapolis. And I can see her face and I can't think of her name, and she's deceased now. We did a chakra class with her, and we balanced them. But she said if something was particularly locked, to let go of it. She would ask you to balance that chakra, and you would go to the sink with running water. You would visualize this person or this situation in your mind, and you would put your hand under the running water and ask that it let it flow into the drain and be carried away.
It's a great
example. I always found that so interesting. And also people who are developing spiritually also belong to a group called the Grandmothers, and it's netoflight.org, and it's the indigenous grandmothers. And they always tell us when we meditate to open our heart. So you'll find that as you get into spirituality more and more, it's that love of all, love of self first, and then love of all. Not ego, but true love of all.
See, and that, Pat, is something that I deal with. I won't say a consistent basis, but it becomes problematic when people are not paying attention. They're saying, well, I follow my heart. That's wonderful. But like Pat said, you have to drop the ego.
You gotta balance it.
You've got to get the expectation out the door. Because if you're trying to say, I'm following my heart, and yet from your relationship partner you are trying to say, here's what I expect of you. I expect to hear I love you. Or the ego says, you didn't tell me you loved me today. That's not following your heart. And now not only are you creating an imbalance by not being truthful to yourself, you're doing damage as you go along. Mm-hmm. So again, from my perspective, very seriously need to keep everything in a line and in balance. We've got 3 more chakras to go, folks, but right now we're going to stop and take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Divine Awakening's New Age Emporium and Healing Arts Shop. It's the largest locally owned and operated metaphysical retailer in the Sandusky, Ohio Tri-County area. Serving the Firelands region since April of 2014, they're pleased to offer a space that is welcoming, relaxing, and open to everyone. In the Emporium, you will find a variety of unique gifts, special events and services, as well as classes and workshops to soothe your mind, body, and spirit. If you're in the Sandusky, Ohio area, look for Divine Awakenings at 1006 Tiffin Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio. Their phone number is 419-502-9137, and you can find them on Facebook at /Divine Awakenings LLC. Back this evening with Reverend Pat Beers and our special guest, Mr. Jared Walters, who is the owner of Divine Awakenings, the metaphysical shop in Sandusky, Ohio. Again, for people that didn't have a chance to tune in early, this weekend, the last show that we spoke about with Jared, we talked about Max the Crystal Skull. He's going to be at Jared's shop, Divine Awakenings, in Sandusky, Ohio, this weekend, the 12th through the 14th. You need to have an appointment to be able to see Max. And if you would, Jared, tell me a phone number where people can call and set up an appointment.
You can reach us at area code 419-502-9137. And I'll be in the shop all day tomorrow from noon until God knows when. So
Fantastic.
All day, get ready.
And I can imagine there's got to be a lot of preparation that goes in for that, too.
Yes.
Okay, we were talking about chakras, and we talked about the first four, which brought us up to the next one being the throat chakra. We spoke a little bit about the heart chakra, and Jared brought something up that was really interesting and needed to talk about it. You were talking about, Jared, what direction chakras actually spin.
Yes. Well, like I said, you want to think of the chakra as a funnel, a little tornado with the open mouth or the bell end facing outwards and narrowing in to the chakra point. The chakras actually flow counterclockwise systematically. You want to think of it this way. If you ever think of a fan, turn on a fan, the front of the fan blows air out, and you can feel that air. But if you go and turn around the fan and look at the opposite end, for instance, if you have some incense or you have smoke or something, you'll see that it actually sucks in energy, or in our purposes for the chakras, energy from the back. And that if you look at the fan, it actually looks like it's flowing counterclockwise.
Wow.
And that's in order for it to be able to pull the energy in. Now, to blow it back out, the back end on the opposite side, it's going to be flowing in a clockwise direction. Now, that can be somewhat confusing to most people, and when you get down to the science of it, even if you look at a drain looks like it's going down clockwise, but at the very base, it's going counterclockwise because it's sucking and pulling the water down in the drain. When you use a pendulum, however, the pendulum will go clockwise. And it comes down to science and really breaking it down from a physics standpoint. You'll see that while it's flowing counterclockwise systematically, the pendulum is going to flow clockwise. So that's how you can tell that it's flowing correctly. If it was flowing counterclockwise, the pendulum, then that would mean that it's flowing the wrong direction. And now that can come down to matter of opinion, but some people say that the chakras can flow both ways, but I disagree. Naturally, for most people, they should be flowing counterclockwise.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, and when I'm balancing them, to me, it looks like it's going counterclockwise, but I'm facing them, and to them, it is going clockwise. So it's really kind of interesting.
Right.
It's a mirror image.
There is a question that is in the chat, kind of more of a comment, from Joanne Troy. And she said, after losing my husband, I've been felt out of whack for the last 2 years. Is there something, based upon the chakras that we've spoken about so far, is there something that she might be able to try to do to help alleviate that?
I would suggest when she showers, you can also use that to allow that water to wash away any and all energy that is not for her highest and best good right now. Because she may be doing everything she is, but remember, emotions are usually water.
Mm-hmm.
And by asking them to wash away any and all energy that is not for her highest and best good, it may help to open her up a little bit to allow things to flow.
Now, that's an interesting point.
I do that myself every day.
That's an interesting point. And when we get done going through the chakras, I want to talk about open versus closed, full versus shallow, so to speak. Jared, would you have anything that you would add?
Yeah, a real easy tool that you can do is go on YouTube and look up chakra meditation. It'll take you through a guided meditation for balancing and aligning the chakras. That'll help dramatically. But you can also, if you have crystals in your reach, or you have a rock shop nearby, just picking up the crystals is some of the simplest things you can do, because it's going to carry the vibration. You can get all 7 stones. That'll help with it and work with all of them.
Fantastic.
You can also burn candles in the colors
Mm-hmm.
associated with that, because you're pulling that energy in again. You're pulling that energy in, and you're letting that candle burn, and it's diffusing that energy into the air, and then the fire's cleansing and purifying. Excuse me, got the hiccup, so it goes many ways.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Moving on up in chakras, we come to the throat chakra, and its color, if I'm not mistaken, is blue.
It is blue.
That's one that I did remember, because I talk to people about that from time to time. What does the throat chakra, Jared, what does it control in our physical body versus our metaphysical body?
So the throat chakra is going to include quite a bit of things. So anything obviously here within this throat region, but it's also going to move up towards the ears as well, because we know psychically our clairaudience is directly connected with our throat chakra. And the throat chakra is all about personal truth and expression.
Fantastic. Pat?
I will read for someone, and I'll start choking like somebody is literally just joking me. And I'll say, "Who do you need to talk to?" And they'll go, "What?" And I go, "Who do you need to talk to? Who chokes you up? Who you think about this person?" And all of a sudden, I'm like, "Ugh." And I ask them to go where they're going to be by themselves, in their car, wherever, and to just talk to this person. Talk it out. Say whatever you want to say to them to get that energy out of your body. Because it's communication to me, and it's creativity, and if you shut that down, you shut down everything without even knowing that this is what you're doing.
I often, when I talk with people and they're saying that they're having a difficult time, it's something like their own intuitive, their gut feeling feels one thing, and their brain thinks something diametrically opposite. And I tell them, look, folks, the real you is your gut feeling, your intuitive. The brain is there to process all this stuff around us, and at times it's a very wonderful, horrible animal, because we can't always control. The second thing with that, when we're dealing with the brain cannot process an emotion. It doesn't feel anything. If you think about it, when you laugh, when you cry, well, you feel down in your solar plexus, down here. The only reason that you would feel something if you're laughing so hard that you get a headache. But you don't feel any emotion up here.
Right.
So when people are kind of imbalanced in themselves, like their gut feeling tells them, don't do anything, stand still. In any situation, relationship or otherwise. And their brain is going, well, I should do this, I should call, I should whatever. What often happens is it comes right up to the throat chakra, and then they can't express themselves well, because your own intuitive and your brain are fighting for control of what's going to be said. So people will sit and they'll they can't speak well, or they become so angry because the brain wants to force these words out that it turns into obscenities, foul language, hate, anger, those kinds of things, not the loving, caring side. So how can we pay attention when our throat chakra is having an issue? What would be some of the more common symptoms of that?
It could be anything from a sore throat, swollen lymph nodes. It could even be neck pain, stumbling, just even something as simple as stumbling over your words, like you were saying, not producing what you're saying. It can also create deeper symptoms too, because when we said if this is blocked, it can start to affect lower things as well. You might not feel well. For instance, if you have issue at work and you need to speak your truth at work and you're not able to do that, or you're not willing to do that, you're going to start to feel that systematically throughout your body. It may be stress, it could be anxiety, it can lead to so many more things symptomatically and physically throughout the body, just because you're not speaking your truth and stating how you feel.
Now that brings up right there is a perfect example. A perfect example of if one chakra is blocked, and the metaphysical energy or water not cascading through the rest of them. If your throat chakra is blocked up because you're not speaking to your boss and telling them what you think, not in an unpolite way, being professional, but you're not saying what is on your mind, then you start to have even more problems when you go downstream from that in the heart chakra. You won't be happy, you won't feel well. In the solar plexus, you'll start to get stomach cramps, indigestion, any kind of dietary problem. You get down to the sacral chakra, and you're going to have problems there. And then you're never going to feel balanced, because down at the very bottom, that solar plexus, the root chakra, is not getting anything. So it's really angry about everything.
Right. I forgot to mention, though, jaw pain is a big one. When you start to clench your teeth and you get in jaw pain, a lot of it's because you're not speaking your truth. It's that throat chakra that's in essence blocked or not flowing properly.
Wow.
And you'll get laryngitis. You got to go in and talk to the boss about a project or something that you've already butted heads over, and you think they're totally off the wall or not listening. You'll lose your voice. So I tell people, write it out and burn it. Don't keep carrying this with you. Get it out somehow. One of the cards that I use from the Dane cards, it says, sometimes a scream is better than a thesis.
Yeah.
So I don't care how you release it. Just try to release it in some way.
Now, I'm going to ask, simply because you brought it up, and we talk about this a lot. When you're saying write down what you're feeling and then burn it, what does that accomplish?
For me, it can be people who are, I don't know where they are, they're deceased. I can't open that can of worms because I know if I open it, I can't control what's coming out. Fire's cleansing and purifying. So I often tell, and I've been doing this for probably 30 years. Spirit just told me to try this, and I did it. I will sit down and I'll just either write a letter to whom it may concern, or if I have people in mind, I name the name. I just start writing. You laugh, you cuss, you cry, you scream. All kinds of emotions come out. Do not read it, keep it, mail it, or give it to anybody. If you read it, you just took back everything I got you to drop out. Sign it like you would any letter, put it in an envelope, seal it, address it to the angels. I like to say the Lord's Prayer, strike a match, burn up, let it go. Because, and the thing about I can hear my husband now, the thing about the envelope, I was always writing these letters and out in the yard, with one of those long lighters, and he's out there mowing the lawn. He's running over all these bits of paper. And the angels told me one day, you're scattering. When you write that letter and you don't put it in an envelope, you're scattering that energy. The parts that burn, you still got these little fragments hanging around. By putting it in an envelope, you seal that energy, you contain it in that one letter, you address it to the angels, and you're going, I did my best, I give you the rest. I don't know what to do with this anymore. And so the fire cleanses and purifies and takes it away. And on some level, you don't have to say a word. On some level, it is received. The energy is different.
So basically, it's exercising negative emotions, feelings, energetics out of your body, transferring that to paper, because you are taking your personal energy to actually write it down. And then when you burn that, it is releasing that, but not coming back to you. It's going out.
What I love about that is people say, I didn't really want to read it, but I glanced. I couldn't read it if I wanted to anyway, because they were scribbling by the time, they got finished. And if they're sad about something that they can't, what they're feeling bad about, they're crying on it, so they still can't read it, so.
You've mentioned this periodically through the shows that we've done. And I know that there were a couple people that I had spoken to, and just for clarity, that's why I asked about that. Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, it is truly a releasement, like you guys were saying, real quick, and it's just that physical change in state of matter. You're taking something that's bothering you, you're getting it out on paper, and then when you burn it, you're releasing it, but it's also it's changing into something maybe more usable when you're sending it to the cosmos, the angels, to source to deal with. You're releasing it.
That's the whole thing. That's the same way with the shower. When you shower and ask them to wash away any and all energy that is not for my highest and best good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's nothing, and other times I'll look down. It's like I got out of a mud puddle and went in and took a shower instead of getting out of bed. Right. We don't realize. I tell people we're like human fly paper, and a lot of people don't even know what fly paper is anymore. But it's like we collect. Everybody brings their problems. whether you're psychic or not, they bring their problems, and you go, oh my gosh, what can I do to help? I didn't know it was that bad. And now you've just taken on their burden, and you don't even realize you've done it.
Wow.
And that's what plays into the chakras. You're taking in stuff constantly. You're processing it on a spiritual level or energetically. So you're absorbing everybody's crud, your own crud, whatever else is out in the environment just floating around that you just picked up.
Think about the people who are news junkies. They don't feel good. They're emotionally a wreck. And I say, quit watching the news.
They
simple.
are.
Start praying. Quit watching.
Oh, that's a perfect example, Pat, because you're turning around and those kinds of people are constantly being bombarded with emergency, news flash, you've got to pay attention, bad news, bad juju, bad crap, negativity. And then we go to a commercial. Oh, don't forget to buy this. And it's right back to headlines, and that's a shame. All right, let's move right up to the next chakra. And this one is a big one because a lot of people have it. Well, everybody has it. A lot of people make use of it without paying attention or not knowing. And the next chakra is the third eye chakra. Now, I'm going to ask Jared, where is that located?
Right here in the middle of your brow. You're right in your forehead.
What in our physical body does that kind of take care of?
It definitely plays in with your pituitary gland. It plays into the brain itself. But that's where the majority of that takes place. We know it's the color indigo. So that's one of the big things with that.
Now, when people say that they see things with their third eye,
yeah,
that is a big one that people might hear in a metaphysical, you go to any metaphysical shop, you go to any spiritual retreat, you get a group of readers together, they'll talk about third eye. Pat, I'm going to ask, in your experience, because you have been doing this far longer than I have, when people talk about their third eye, what do you tell them, and what kind of cautions might you give about this particular chakra and capability?
If you go like Camp Chesterfield, I did all the classes from a minister's license there and never sat for the exam. It's your ajna. I tell people it's my invisible TV screen. I'm looking at you, but I'm watching this invisible TV screen that you can't see. And if you could just see what I'm seeing here, it would be so much simpler. I ask them if they have gut feelings. I ask them if they have deja vu. I ask them if they have dreams. And it's just well, yeah, I do that once in a while. That you're psychic also. Maybe you don't have it as much as I do. The night before our son broke both his arms when he was 10 days out from first grade, my husband thought I was nuts. I kept dreaming the same dream 3 times. I saw this man carry our son with his arms like this. I couldn't tell if he was alive or dead. So we went to the picnic the next night. He had fallen from a sliding board and broke both his arms. And my husband looked at me and said, I'm not telling you nothing, because I described the guy that was carrying him. But it happens to all of us. But some of us are just more in tune with it, if you will. And I just tell them it's just that invisible TV screen, those gut feelings that I always tell people, I knew I shouldn't do it, but I did it anyway. And then it comes back and bites you in the tush and says, I told you so. Why didn't you listen?
Jared, when you have people that come into your shop and they're saying that they are seeing things or that they are experiencing oddities visually, and because we're all in the metaphysical field, we would relate to, okay, there's something going on here in the metaphysical side. How would you help them work through that? And what kind of crystal would go with that to be able to help balance or calm things down?
Well, when somebody comes in and they're saying that they're seeing all kinds of things, we're talking about clairvoyance here. And, it can be something as simple as just saying, can you visualize an apple? That's basically how we get the picture. It's in our mind's eye. So when somebody comes in and they're saying this thing, it can be difficult for the very beginning, a new beginner that's just dealing with this and starting to recognize it, and this chakra being open and receiving, and they're getting all these downloads of information continually. It's one of those things where you have to set parameters. You got to kind of tell them, you have to set parameters with spirit. and your unseen support team, as I call it. And basically stating what you're willing to see and what you're not willing to see, and when you're working and when you're not working. And that's where it can become very complicated, because it's just identifying these things in yourself and how to find that balance, in essence, to work with this type of information. Not everybody is clairvoyant per se. It can be something that's developed in them. And a lot of times it can just be you can go back to just balancing it with, which a stone I would recommend would be, oh gosh, it fleeted me now. It's the only true indigo stone, iolite. It came to me. But iolite is the only true indigo stone, because it's that bluish purple color. But if you can't come in contact with iolite, you can always use something like amethyst, if you will, for that chakra.
Pat, here's a question, because I know you can relate to this. Readers, and I know Jared can as well, don't take that the wrong way. Readers have an almost wide open third eye when we work with people, because we are open to information coming. We don't always get to pick and choose the things that we see. So how would you tell people to kind of balance part of that in their everyday life?
When we do our prayer circle at the opening things, we always, if the message comes and it's going to be something that may be scary to them or maybe not such good news, we say, and that we give them the truth with the highest and best truth that we can. So I will plant a seed. I've been told that, probably heard me talk about this before. A lady named Polly Green lived in Cincinnati. I was down there for meetings. And I suddenly said to her, well, how's your daughter doing? Because I saw her daughter with this huge growth in her throat. And she said, oh, she's had a sore throat she can't get rid of. I said, maybe she had to get that checked out. Well, she had thyroid cancer, and they didn't know it. And so I've been told that sometimes I see things like that. One man was going to have a heart attack, and of course he wouldn't go to the doctor, and his wife. And I said, because he had stomach trouble all the time. I said, maybe go get him checked out. I always asked us that it only be from the highest and best of the light. I ban all negativity. People will say to me, well, what do you think? What do you feel? I say, I'm off duty right now. I have had times in my life, the last major one I remember, our son is 45. He was 11 years old. I couldn't even go to the grocery store and stand at a checkout line because everybody in that store spirit was just like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I couldn't breathe. I'd have to stay way back here, put all my food on the thing, run to the front where it was totally open. And I would literally have to run from the store sometimes. Because so I just tell them, I'm sorry. I almost had nervous breakdowns. And I told them, if you can't leave me alone, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't care. I will not. I just will not do it. And so you got to set boundaries. You got to tell them. And my thing is, don't tell me anything I can't do something about. Make the message clear, concise, complete, and then give me a confirmation. And with a lot of people, the same subject keeps coming up over and over again. I've been many years, but I read for a gentleman who was a tire engineer for Firestone. I'd read for him several times, and he came in and I said, what is wrong with your tire? He says, I work for Firestone, Pat. My tires are fine. I said, okay, cool. I said, there's something about your tires. I drive a new car. I have an old pickup truck. I drive around the farm. I'm good. He called me about 3 days later and said, Pat, you remember talking to me about tires? And I said, yes, I do. Why? He said, well, my car was in the shop and I was driving the old pickup truck and I had 3 flats in 1 week. I should have listened to you. Or they'll see a commercial about the same things over and over again. And it's spirit going, hey, heads up here. I'm trying to tell you something, and then they come back and go, gotcha.
And that's,
I know you can't relate.
I'm not saying a word about relating, but yeah.
Yeah, because your face is all red, so I knew I had a button there.
Yep. Pass.
What?
It is truth that anytime that spirit wants to get your attention and you're not listening and you're not paying attention to see what they're trying to show you, it then will become manifest in your everyday life, in billboards, commercials, songs on the radio, all of these things. Spirit trying to get your attention to go, hey, wake up. Pay
I'm
attention.
always going, got the 2x4, I don't need the 4x6.
Yeah.
You know, like when my husband passed, I wouldn't slow down because even though he lived 18 months instead of the 5 they gave him, I just didn't want to deal with all that. So I just put myself into working, and then I broke both my ankles at the same time in the house I lived in 35 years. I was one step in my garage. Yeah, they'll get your attention one way or another.
Yeah, they will. And this is something that I've learned over a course of a couple of decades. The spirit will get your attention or try to work with you as soon as needed and as soon as a timing is correct. And it's usually very early on, whether it's in a good way, you're having a good thing and they're trying to lead you to a better thing, or whether you're having a problem. Spirit wants to help do these things. So this is the straight line you're walking. The further off you go from the path, the more force is going to be required to get your attention to put you back on the path. Yeah. So they might nudge you a little bit at the very beginning. You go further off the path, they're going to push you a little bit. You go further off the path, they're going to take out a ball bat and they're going to swing and knock you out. And that's when people experience all of these problems physically, financially, in their job, in their relationships, and they go, oh my God, what's happening to me? Well, folks, let's back up because you probably didn't pay attention. You know, now, not calling fault or anything like that. It's just saying, I've been there, I've done it. Pat's watched it happen, you know? And then, for those of us that work in the metaphysical field or are metaphysically inclined, when we realize what we've done, we're like, oh, shit.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, it's bad. Before we get to the last chakra, Hank in the chat room said, what about people who are empathic? In your view, is the third eye, or would that type of information be more for the solar plexus? So empathic. Where would that come from?
In my body, wherever the problem is with them.
No. Meaning, if a person is empathic, which chakra is that more or less associated with?
Solar plexus, Jared?
I would say solar plexus, definitely, because we know that your solar plexus is definitely directly linked to your clairsentience, your clear feeling. So as you're in a situation, for instance, a group situation, a lot of people who are empathic tend to not like to be in those environments around a lot of people because they're pulling in all this information right here in their gut, if you will, right at that level of the belly button. So definitely you're pulling in all that information. Sometimes it can feel like you're going on the big downhill slope of a roller coaster, and your stomach just feels like, oh, I don't like this information. I don't like what I'm receiving. So they tend to stay away from group situations because it can cause so many other issues of anxiety and other things within you. So definitely solar plexus.
Okay, that's fantastic. Hank, that was an awesome question in the chat room because people are empathic. Sometimes they're aware of it and use it. Sometimes it just becomes part of who they are or what they do. But that's really good to know.
An interesting tidbit with that, most people, I can't speak for everyone, that are intuitive to some degree or definitely empathic, we tend to put on a little bit more weight because it's as a protection, a cushion, if you will. So a lot of us tend to have a little rounder midsection sometimes if we're patting ourselves from what we're receiving.
I don't know if you remember the little girl that was the nurse. She later died of cancer, but it was early on. It may have been even before, Michael, you came to Virginia Beach. She was a size 8 when she started getting into this stuff. And within like 6 years, she was a size 10, 12, working her way toward a 14. And she couldn't understand. She was also a nurse. And we told her, are you protecting yourself? Are you clearing the emotions away? Are you saying, yes, I will hear this, I will see this, but I send it into the earth to be transmuted? Once she started doing that, her size went back down a little bit, but it's usually in the solar plexus area because you're protecting self. You are protecting self, whatever way you can.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that from time to time. You go to a psychic fair, you're going to see all types of readers, all types of people. But when you start, and I'm not saying stereotype, by God, folks, don't stereotype one reader to another, please. And I tell people, look, they say, well, I asked this reader and they said that, and I asked that reader and they said something else. Look, as if you put 4 readers on 4 corners of a very busy downtown intersection, and there's an accident that happens, none of them are going to be able to tell you the same information because nobody saw the same thing.
Well, and then also I tell people, you may have talked to her or him about this, and then you come to me and I'm talking about something entirely different. They handled that emotional situation or allowed you to handle that situation. So it's not important to you anymore. I'm now picking up on the next things that's front and center in your head. Or they'll come back to me and say, well, it's 5 of you told me the same thing today, because that's something that is very specific and important to you. And so you're needing to really focus on that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
We're going to move to the last chakra because we're already past our hour. But we're going to move to the last chakra, which is the crown chakra, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Jared, tell me about the crown chakra, if you would.
The crown chakra, some of its functions would be wisdom, transcendence, universality. It's usually pictured in a violet color, but you could use amethyst for it, any stone that's really purple. But you can also use something like a clear quartz or an apophyllite, something along those lines for it.
Okay. Now, this is also the part that connects our more physical body to our higher self, correct?
Yes.
And then from there, connecting us to the rest of the metaphysical realm, the spiritual realm, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's a question. Let's say, because we've talked about chakras that are working correctly, chakras that are closed, let's talk about a chakra that is open way too much. And let's say that chakra was the crown chakra. Just overdoing everything. It's not always a bad thing, but it is going on for a definite period of time. What would that look like if it were overactive and spilling down through the rest and cascading through the other chakras?
To me, it's overactive. It's too much. You're like, you're anxious. You don't know why. It's your spirituality. It's your connection to the universe for me. And if you can just pull yourself back into love and loving yourself and trying to calm yourself down. I pictured a lotus. When I'm meditating, I picture a lotus opening up. And sometimes it opens way wide and sometimes it just opens a little bit.
Jared, Pat, you mentioned meditation. Jared, I'm going to ask, when you meditate, and you meditate on a particular chakra, is there something in a general sense that people should know, understand, or do?
When you're meditating?
Mm-hmm. Let's say if I were meditating on my heart chakra, mm-hmm. Is there something in particular that I should be aware of doing or not doing?
You can definitely visualize in the meditation the color of that chakra. And seeing a green, and you're seeing it as a wheel of green that's flowing in a, it's flowing in a clockwise motion, and you can see this being so, and you can just kind of see that radiating from that area specifically. You kind of want to center yourself and bring yourself down to the heart chakra and concentrate on that area, and you can feel it. And when it's flowing, you can feel that color. You can feel that energy coming through. So a lot of it's just focus and intent. When we know that intention drives the living energies of the universe. So whatever you intend to be and what you can visualize and bring into being, then you can really start to work on that area and make it better, if you will.
Fantastic. I noticed that my video on my end is not playing so nicely now.
It's stuttering every now and then.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll sit still and I'll look like a Muppet or something for a little while. Pat, do you have anything that you would want to add to that?
No, just to tell people, meditating be very intense or it can be very light. For me, sometimes I just if I'm having a rush day or I don't have time to meditate or whatever, I close my eyes, I take a deep breath, I hold it to the count of 4, I blow it out through my mouth to the count of 4, and I declare divine order. And I'll do that 3 times. And it's amazing how you will calm down. You know, if you don't have time to balance your chakras or aren't sure what to do. And I tell people each time you take that breath in, you go divine order. And at the last time you do it, you're going, okay, gang, I need a little help down here. And I did that. My doctor was I could tell he was frazzled when he walked in, and I had him do that. And he looked at me, he says, well, why didn't you tell me that 15 years ago? And I said, you never asked. So it's just like, even in a checkout line, if you can tell that the person is just so frazzled, I say, just quick, close your eyes a minute and just, and I go, wow, because it's like amazing. So just be still and know, just be calm, trust yourself. There's no wrong way, and there's a lot of ways people will tell you is the right way, but just always ask to speak to the highest and best of the light. Don't tell me anything I can't do something about, and set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Set boundaries. And the angels can't help us if we don't ask. Okay, gang, I need a little help with this or that or the other thing.
And that's important as well. Jared, do you have anything about chakras that you would want to relate to people before we call and close in for the evening?
All I have to say is just do a little bit of research, and you'll find it truly amazing, because this is the our energy body, and working within our energy body that throws our physical body out of alignment from time to time. So it's good to try to find a way to balance yourself, whether that be either seeing an energy healer of some modality to, buy basic stones for those chakras. Maybe find some music or something that has the different intensities and the frequencies for the chakras. But there's other schools of thought out there. There's some people that believe there's more than just the general 7. We have minor chakras. There's this whole idea of 12 chakras, where there'd be 4 additional chakras above our head from our crown chakra. And then there's actually one down the soles of our feet. So there's lots of information out there.
Yep. And in your hands, I've been told they're over 100. And it's just how deep into this you want to go.
Yeah, your left hand is your receiving hand. So this minor chakra here pulls in energy, and your right hand minor chakra pushes the energy out.
There's a lot of people that I understand and I don't want to say this is a general kind of thing, but when you are talking about reception and giving, not only is it energetic, but it's also when you're talking about your finances, when you're talking about your relationships, what energy are you receiving from a partner? What are you giving? So again, all of these chakras have to be in balance in some fashion. Otherwise, you're going to look like a marionette kind of going down the road and not walking well, not doing well, stumbling all over it creates a problem.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jared, I seriously appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Again, at Jared's store in Sandusky, Ohio, Max the Crystal Skull. Call and get your appointment. And Jared, tell me one more time what the phone number is.
It's 419-502-9137.
Perfect. Pat, have you got anything coming up this weekend that you're going to be out where people can visit you in the public?
I will be at the wonderful Conneaut Lake Hotel in Conneaut, Pennsylvania. Haunted as all get out. It's a lot of fun. We'll have all kinds of vendors and healers and everything. So
good. Fantastic. Me, myself, and I don't get back out in the public a whole lot simply because I've got so many things going on. But again, all of us are available. Jared at his shop, Divine Awakenings. Pat, myself, Heather, who is not here this evening. You can find all of our contact information either in the Terra Turas Facebook page, or you can visit us online at www.terraturas.com and check us out. You can visit anytime and get our contact information if you need. All right, folks, this has been an evening talking about chakras, and I don't know about anybody else, but I learned an awful lot. I'm always up for that. Again, both of you, thanks for being here this evening. Next week we'll have Heather back, and we'll come back with another topic that's going to be of interest and keep all of us going. From all of us here at Terra Turas, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Everyone.